Good afternoon. I hope that you are all well rested and had great lunch. I sure did. I still cannot believe that I'm getting a chance to talk to you from this very exciting stage for the second time today. What a job I have, right? In the next 45 minutes, two of my colleagues and I will walk you through some of our most exciting releases from the past year. We're going to structure the talk around the same three pillars that we did in the keynote: build, accelerate, and scale. We are starting with the build pillar. This is all about crafting reliable automations. And I guess we all know the feeling. You have built a powerful automation. It's running smoothly, and then errors start crawling in. Maybe your automation is just too fast, and the apps you are connecting to can't keep up. Or maybe you have exposed an unsecured webhook, leading to unwanted executions. These sort of issues can take your automations off their tracks. This is why today we are going to talk about some of the new capabilities that we have built to let you build with more flexibility and control so that you prevent these errors from ever occurring. We just talked about the chaos of errors. Often, the source is a paradox. Your automation is just running too fast. Imagine a spike in activity, like from a flash sale. These sort of events can flood third-party APIs, leading to a storm of rate limit errors. This is why we have built scenario rate limiting. It lets you solve the paradox by going slower to get better results. It allows you to set a maximum pace, and Make will automatically flatten these sudden spikes into a nice and steady, manageable flow. By controlling the speed, you get more reliable outcomes, prevent errors, and reduce the need for manual fixes. So, we have given you control over the speed of your data. Now, let's talk about controlling who can send the data in the first place. As you build more critical scenarios, ones that deal with customer information or financial data, the need for security becomes a top priority. To meet this emerging need, we have built a systemic solution: authenticated webhooks. It allows you to control and ensure that only trusted applications can trigger your workflows. The best part is that the authentication happens before the scenario even starts, ensuring that your scenarios are safe and secure from the very first step. With your workflows running at a controlled pace and securely triggered, you can build with more complexity. But building bigger shouldn't mean building messier. The key is to build smarter using modular parts. This is why we have updated our sub-scenarios to return outputs. This changes everything. Your scenarios are no longer just one-way tasks. They can be these reusable and modular functions that can fetch data, perform an action, and return a result back to whoever called them. It also unlocks new possibilities. Your scenarios can act as tools for AI agents or even as simple API endpoints. You can and should use this to break down large workflows into small and reusable pieces. Building these powerful workflows is great, but it opens a new question. How do you manage, test, and debug this new level of complexity with confidence? To answer that, let's jump into a demo of two of our new capabilities: run naming and replace. So here we are in a very familiar experience of the scenario builder. We have a scenario that starts with a Google Sheets that watches for new leads. If the value is above a certain threshold, it notifies my sales manager. And if it's below a threshold, it just creates a draft email in my Gmail so that I can get back to it whenever I want. Let's see how this scenario is actually performing. And we can already see that this is not the most reliable scenario, right? It's actually we are actually seeing more errors than success. But to help me connect the dots and see which leads were actually successfully processed and which encountered an error, I have to open the individual run detail, wait for that thing to load, which can take a couple of seconds. Now I have to open the trigger output, wait for this to load again, and only now I can actually start seeing some data that means something to me. Let's fix it. Let's go back into the scenario diagram and editor so that we can actually add this new level of visibility. We have introduced your scenario run naming, which works in a way that you can add a module to your scenario. It's in the Scenarios app, and it's called Customize Run Name. It's a module that doesn't cost any credits, so there is no reason to think twice about using it, and it exposes a very simple interface, just one field. In this case, I'll just map my lead name and the company name so that I can actually connect the dots between the run and the data that is actually triggering it. Let's run it a couple of times and see the impact it's having on the scenario history. Right, so from the very first glance, I can actually start seeing data that means something to me because I sort of know the leads that are coming my way, and I can see which were successfully processed and which actually encountered an error. But I still hate seeing these errors, right? And I've noticed that it's in the Gmail route. So let's go and fix it. Lucky for me, if I open the module configuration, I can notice a very rookie mistake. I'm mapping a name instead of an email to the recipient field. This is an easy fix, but they are not always that easy, right? So, having fixed the module, I could just save the scenario and hope for the best, but because I like to test stuff, I can now click the replay function directly next to the run once button. I can select a historical run and have the data processed on the current scenario version, even if it's not yet saved. So let's do that. Now I can see that the scenario went through end to end, and what previously encountered an error is now successfully processed. Now I can safely save the scenario and go back to the scenario history. Here we can see that what previously encountered an error is now successfully recovered. All that's left for me is to replay the other runs as well. For that, we have added another replay button directly into the scenario history that allows you to replay the trigger data on the current last saved scenario version. We can see that it also went through the newly added run name module, and I'm suddenly seeing this new level of detail for the leads that were received even prior to me actually adding it. Right, so now we can go back into the slides. So you have essentially built a masterpiece. It's controlled, secure, and now well tested. All that's left on a builder's journey is to share the success with others. And we have learned this the hard way, that sending a nicely structured JSON is not the top-notch user experience that you are expecting. So this is why I'm excited to introduce you our new scenario sharing experience. It lets you publish a link to your scenario, which creates a tailored landing page where you can share some details about your scenario. And the person who receives this link can just download and create a scenario in their organization in just one click. This is a key step to making collaboration in Make truly simple. This is how we are empowering you in the build pillar to build with more flexibility, control, and intelligence. But the key question is, what's next? How do you build these powerful workflows truly intelligent? To tell you more about it, how we are putting the power of AI at your fingertips. Let's give a huge welcome to Sebastian. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks for joining again. And yeah, let's talk about Accelerate with the power of AI and how we can make your workflows more intelligent. So, as you know, this year we introduced the power of agentic automation to Make. That means we have growing adoption, we have new level of intelligence that can choose which scenario gets actually executed. Agents making now a decision. Hey, should I call maybe this sub-scenario? Should I call that sub-scenario? They actually understand what to process. They know what kind of data to pick from your context. But how we make them smarter and how we make them more flexible, we showed you at our keynote. So for today, we'll focus on what you have in our current agent. And I want to dive more into this with you at the demo at the end. Now, before we go there, let's focus even more on what makes these agents so powerful. So you have context, you have sub-scenarios that can choose, and you have MCP. Let's dive into each separately a bit more. One of the most natural things how you can actually test an agent is, how am I speaking to you? You're chatting with it. If you're typing or sending voice, it doesn't matter. You ultimately have a way how you can really reference, does this agent do what I want it to do? And this helps you to test and debug. Ultimately, if you want to guide decisions, you should rather use the context or the context of the LLM itself. We're calling our RAG context, but still you can send in a system prompt or user message to context as well. Or you have a new way how you can interact with APIs. As MCP servers are emerging, you can just directly plug them into Make. And all of this supported with our Improve the Prompt capability that helps you actually writing a prompt better and making it more precise to see if the tool is actually really well used. Now, as I said, sub-scenarios. We experience that the current setup way to build an agent is not as straightforward as we want it to be. That's why we're introducing simplifying agents with module tools. You can now directly add from your agents in our scenario builder, and on our agent tab, you can add directly module tools. This allows you setting up directly any kind of module that you used to have in Make on your canvas, also on the agent tab itself. This is way more flexible, and you have the option to let the AI agent decide. You saw that previously on the keynote, but also if you look at it right now, you see it clicked. We will see this in action. Now, going from there, there's so much more when we're talking about AI. So AI is really powerful when it gets plugged into automations, because ultimately it can take decisions, it can reason, and it can really bring some intelligence into previously pretty static workflows. So let's take a recap. Some of you were users of our previous version, Make AI Tools. Now, we released Make AI Toolkit. It's our second version and way more powerful and has way more capabilities. We plan to invest in there. I'm super happy to engage with you and talk with you more about it, what you would like to see. If you would like to see more multimodality, video, photo, and audio generation right out of the box, powered by Make. Now, as the second part, we hear from many customers that it would be great if they can directly process files and extract content directly within Make. And as we have the capabilities, we thought, well, let's do it. Let's bring this capability that many customers ask for when they're operating in their business directly in a seamless experience to you. This is why we introduced Make AI Context Extractor. And I'm super happy to announce today that we are soon releasing Make AI Web Search. It allows you and your LLM to be really up to date. So you can just search the web and you can figure out, hey, what's the latest news? Or is this API version actually the right version right now? So these things allow you to get real live data from the web and injecting this into your scenario. But that's not it. We hear from many customers, it would be so great if Make actually provides us the capability to directly use any LLM in Make. We started this journey by offering 3 flavors, a small, a medium, and a large size LLM that you can directly plug into your agent or into your AI toolkit. And I'm super happy to also communicate that in case you were on a Pro plan, we moved it also to a Core plan now. So you can choose any of your existing providers, again, on a Core plan. And this allows you to seamlessly use LLMs. And if you're interested, and I'm more interested in getting feedback from you, how you would like to see this in the future evolving. You say, well, we would actually like to see more Claude, we would like to see more Gemini models. Feel free to come after the session to me, and let's have a talk about it. Now, with this said, for me, I want to show you now how you can actually use our agent in action and build something with our new module tools. Okay, so this is my Airtable. And I'm just going to explain to you the case so everybody is on the same spot here. Who from you is hiring people in their company? Or which company working is hiring people? Probably everyone that's not just a freelancer hires people in this company. So when you decide, well, we really need a new person, there's usually, if you have an HR department, a job requisition need. And this is a table of fictional job needs where you need to create, as a manager, a job requisition. It could be a customer, it could be also something you produced. It's a typical Airtable base where you're actually trying to create something and update and work. Now, let's create an agent that helps us interacting with this and updating it and building even more data into it. So I will start from scratch, but in case something fails because internet goes off or whatsoever, I have some backups. So I'm going to create the job requisition agent on the 16 of 10, so just to have this differentiated. And in this case, I'm going to use the large model. I always recommend customers to start with a large one. You can always go smaller, but if you go from small to large because you realize your use case doesn't work, it's easier to go, hey, let's first nail the use case, let's use a larger language model, and then go smaller. So to have this a bit more efficient, I created myself a little Google Doc to just copy over the prompt, but I will read it out loud. So you're responsible to create new job requisitions that we have open based on the manager's description and their needs. So let's create this agent. And what you can do is you can now simply use this improved prompt, and I'm just going to ask it, make it 5% longer. I don't want that it makes it really, really long. If you just enter it, it makes it way, way longer and way more proficient. I would recommend you doing this once you added the tools, but because I want to run the demo and go a bit faster, I'm just doing this and running it. So while it's now improving and updating the prompt to be a bit more precise, you could also see this with a long prompt, or you could just really dump in a lot of information. LLMs became really, really good in writing prompts, so I would actually recommend you this. Now, let's add a bit of context to our system. So I see it is not here anymore. Then let's download my context again. So just have a text file here. It's our brand voice guidelines. And it's really important that when we post these job requisitions on social media, that they follow kind of like a standard language. That's why we have these guidelines. Now I'm going to upload my guidelines. I'm just going to use, in this case, a TXT file. But you could also use our context modules to take the data from your Google Drive and send it to the context. So this should take a second. What happens now is that this file gets vectorized and chunked in the backend, so we make it really, really easy for you to directly ingest these context files into your agent. Now, you could also add MCP, but I would really recommend you to join the session right after this, because we're going to spend a full 45 minutes on just MCP. That's why in my session, we're going to skip this. Now, let's dive into the capability of directly creating modules inside our agents. Now, we can click on the module as a tool. And what I want to do is I want to create a new job requisition. Therefore, I already have from the previous tests some modules, but we're going to skip them because I want to show you a fresh new way how you can create a record. You can just go in your Airtable, and in this case, I'm going to use my jobs open base. And I will just slightly rename the description, creates a new job requisition record in Airtable. And this description is good enough for the LLM to actually choose the right tool. Now, we're going to use this table. I did not rename it. It's called grid view. But this is something I want to show you, and I think this is really, really powerful for you. You can let AI now decide on any field that is mappable to actually directly let the agent create the seniority, the location, the skills, and all of these things. You could even let the smart links work there. So now, let's add this, and let's test if our agent works. Therefore, I'm going to save it, and I want to create a social media manager. You see, here's no social media manager in there. And let's run this. Please create a social media manager. Just choose mid-level and any other field you can. OK, let's see. And now what it does is understands, OK, I should create a social media manager. I told them, hey, just make it up, right? I could, of course, create more information. I could send more information there. But ultimately, the agent should, in this case, just decide and create it for me. It's now reading how things should be written. And if this process is done, of reading now our essential context in this case, then it should create the Airtable record. And if everything worked well, we have now here a social media manager that adheres to our guidelines and is directly created and has all the text that's coherent with our standards. Now, that's not it. You can really interact with it. You can get this directly to your scenario canvas. And let's do this. Let's get this agent into our scenario canvas. Because this agent is only valuable if it actually can be triggered by one of our managers that fills out a form. But you could apply this use case for so many cases where customers are sending forms or sending you emails or any kind of data. So these simple workflows are the ones that happen most in businesses. So let's use Tally. In this case, I'm just going to use my existing webhook, and I'm going to use the job form. And now that I have filled out my job form, I can save it, and I can use directly my agent. And in this case, I can use run my agent. I can choose here the one from today, just to be sure. And one of the things that I really, really like that we have this, you can just say, hey, just use everything. Just use the whole bundle, figure it out. And in this case, let's turn it on. Let's save it, run it once, and let's go to our job form. This is my job form. It's kept, of course, for the demo purposes, way smaller and really, really short. Sorry, just misclicked. And let's open our job form to fill this out. So email, just going to use some email, just a second. Make.com. And I want to create, in this case, let's say, social media manager. Let's use a marketing manager. Marketing. I will also just include this, just choose, and because it usually will ask for more information to interact with it, but in this case, for the demo purposes, we will just let it run. Now, let's go back to our Teleform and our Make AI agent. And our agent right now does the same thing. It queries behind the scenes the context and also creates the Airtable entry. Now, you can also see why we are investing more in our new generation of agents, because what happens is right now not really transparent to you. And we want to make this really visual and bring it directly to where you are operating. It takes quite long. It might fail. Let's see. Actually, it's already there. So here's the marketing manager, and it got created, and now we have our marketing manager that we just asked for. And you choose remote and all of these things because I told it, hey, just to get it done. Now, well, my team made a problem when they created this Airtable base. And problems happen. I just yesterday received the wrong document from the government. These things, they just happen, even though we ordered the right one. Now, my team did not include the salary ranges. For me, this is really important because if I'm responsible in HR and I don't know what salary ranges my team wants to have, I need to verify this with our budget. So let's create a single line of text and just call it salary ranges. And now I can use the same agent and I can create a one-time migration. I can just go here. I can use, again, Modulus tools, and I can, in this case, use an update Airtable module. Updates the record by its ID. And I would just slightly adjust this. Use our base again. And now it's pulling already in the table, and I can choose which fields. So you can in this case, also let the AI agent decide on the record ID, and you can let the agents decide on the job title, job description, seniority, whatever, because we might update all of these things, and most importantly, the salary ranges. Now, the problem is, it only has create and update. What is really important is that it also can search before it updates, so it knows what to update. So let's add one more, which is our search for Airtable. In this case, search records, specific for records. Use the base again. Scrolling down, grid view. And in this case, because we want that it just returns all the fields, and I'm just going to increase this limit to 20 just to have it here. Edit, and now I'm going to save it and can say, my team forgot to add salary ranges. Please update the Airtable for all records. Just create ranges that are common and get it done. Okay, let's see what it does. So if everything works now, it should start searching, and it should then start updating my records. And you can see it identified, well, I don't need the context for this task because I don't need to create something. I just need to update. And now it got all the output from our Airtable base, and it starts updating the records. So you can see here, it's creating now for the social media manager and the marketing manager. And because I didn't refresh the page, it will most likely just update the records that I previously created. Well, actually, it starts updating all of them. But that's the randomness of working with an LLM. So with this, you can see you can directly plug in your modules into your agent and make it work inside Make. And with this, I'm super, super happy now to introduce you to German, our principal product manager. Thanks a lot.
Hi everyone, super glad to be here and explain you some of the highlights of the recent releases that help you scale your systems even further. And as promised in the keynote, I'd love to start with the grid. The grid, it's an auto-generated interactive map of your whole landscape. So you see your scenarios, your AI agents, and all the systems they connect to. Because we believe that if you can see it, it's just way easier to understand and further scale your setup. As also mentioned a bit earlier, we released it in summer after a pretty intense closed beta phase where we tried to collect as much feedback as possible and try to reflect it in the product. And we're still following that principle. So while showcasing you how it works, I'll repeatedly stop to highlight the most recent changes to you as well. So let's get started with a very simple setup, right? It's not the most complex organization I've ever seen, and probably applies to many of you. There are a couple of scenarios here. Overall, there should be 2 teams, right? Yeah. So that's a setup, not the most complex one. There's one use case apparently that's about conference registration, and of course, as part of that, there are reservations coming in. And what I want to start with is a very, very simple use case. As part of this scenario, you see that apparently it interacts with Google Sheet. And just from the names of the modules, I would guess it interacts with a sheet that somehow holds vouchers. So let's assume you want to get rid of that sheet or do changes to that sheet. I mean, of course, I can just go here and fix these or change these two modules. That's very easy. We all know. But how do I make sure I'm not breaking anything? They might be used somewhere else, right? So usually you would have to go back to your list, check if any other scenarios use Google Sheet and if they actually use the same one. You might have to also check the other team. I mean, it might be used in the other team as well. So that's an example of a very simple example of dependencies and how they can make certain things quite tricky. I'll show you how the grid helps deal with such a dependency. So we were starting from that scenario. And what you can do now is you can zoom out of the scenario level, basically, and you look at a higher level representation. No, I'm not giving feedback now, but I might be in the future. You're free to give feedback anytime. So what you see here on the grid is the scenario itself and the internal and external objects it connects to. So apparently there are 3 Airtables that are used. It triggers another scenario, so this is another scenario. And it's triggered by this tele form webhook, so I could navigate there as well. And what I was looking for, that's the Google Sheet, right? We saw it interacted with the Google Sheet, that's the Google Sheet. I can even, if I want to, just double-click and it will open it, so it actually exists. And if I now wanted to do a change to that Google Sheet or completely replace it, I would have here the full list of scenarios. I could even open them directly. We had to add that based on popular demand by you. So you can easily open all of them up and do changes if you have to. And the same level of transparency you also get for our AI agents. Seb just showed you how to build one. And if you have built one, you'll see the scenario that actually leverages the agent. Like in his example, the one that was, I think, reacting to Slack, or it was the teleform, right? So you would see that scenario as well as the other scenarios that are acting as tools and what these tools can do. Like here's a tool that reads from this Airtable as well. So that's how Grid helps you understand and spot these dependencies. And I want to pause here just for a second to explain a bit how that whole concept works, right? So by definition, if we zoom out a little bit, you'll see every app you're using being represented, right? So here you see Go Cardless, and you'll see that this app is used by these 2 scenarios and apparently triggers an according webhook. We learned from you, though, that you'd love to see things represented a bit more granular, right? So not just the service. You'd love to rather see the Google Sheet, the Airtable tables that you saw, these aspects. Or I think there should be another one. Yes, the MySQL database as well. So we recently more than doubled the coverage of apps for which we have these more granular representations on the grid so that you can really spot the assets that are being used. We learned, again, from your feedback that sometimes, especially for applications that you're using as the backbone of your systems, you would love to have even more granular visibility. So, for example, here for the database, you'd love to learn which of the columns of the database are used. Or if you're using Monday, which of the Monday board columns are used. Airtable fields, Notion columns, etc. Right? Salesforce fields. So for these apps that are frequently used as backbones, we added another level of granularity where you can really see these columns or fields that are being used and how they're being used by the different scenarios. For all these database apps, for that we even parse the SQL if you're using custom SQL to detect those. So with that, you have, on that level of granularity, the dependency, so you know if I wanted to get rid of a field or if I would want to perform a change to a field, what are the scenarios I need to look into? And of course, you're not always starting from make, right? You might be working somewhere in your Airtable, and you're thinking, can I do that change? So that's what we learned, and we tried to accommodate that on the grid by extending our search functionality. So let's assume you would want to get rid of that Jira key column. You now can simply use the search that was extended to also surface these attributes. So you'll see that the Jira key of that board we were starting from is used in just one scenario, while the whole table is used in 4. There's one last aspect when it comes to dependencies, and then we can move on, that I wanted to share. Because what we learned from you is that, especially if you're dealing with your own custom systems, you're relying a lot on HTTP modules as well. And for those, ideally, you told us you would want to have the same kind of visibility. To achieve that, what we did, I mean, I can either use the search or, let me use it. We brought what we call web services to the grid as well. So you'll see which web service you're using on the grid as well. Looks that nice because it's actually used in 2 folders. I wasn't showing that before. And again, we added that additional level of granularity that you can even see which of the endpoints you're using. So if you're thinking about a custom system that you've built in-house and you're thinking about doing changes, you can figure out where those are used as well. So overall, that's how the whole dependency topic works. That's the object and the assets we show on the grid, and that's how it helps you figure out the dependencies when you're planning to do changes or bigger changes. But of course, it's not only about these dependencies, right? It's also about helping you to understand the bigger picture. So what you see here, these islands are the folders, right? So I have different folders in my team, and you see the team, and you also see the other teams. So basically, you see the whole organization if you're on a Teams plan, which allows you, even if you build stuff yourself, to come back to a solution and remind yourself of the structure. What's part of the solution? How is the data flown? Like, you can open all these objects if you want, like, and figure out how things are working. Which, I mean, also if you haven't built it yourself, but someone else built it, it might be quite handy as well, right? And we learned that, especially when you're collaborating, those of you that are working in teams, it's very helpful to have this as a joint visual language so that you can explain to others or discuss potential changes you're about to do. Just all these types of communication, Grid is there to help with that as well. And especially if you're responsible for maintaining such a setup, there's a couple of things we added to help you with that as well. So assume you know there's going to be a maintenance window on some of the apps you're using. Or perhaps, like, it wasn't announced and there's an outage for some of the services. And you want to figure out which parts of your landscape are affected so that you can react. For that, you can leverage the filter functionality that can give you a very... Oh, some people are building on my organization. That's nice. Yeah, that's another thing I probably should mention, right? It's auto-updating. With all the changes you're doing, while you're on the grid, every 2 minutes it will update. And of course, if you want it quicker, you can also use the button below here to get more frequent updates if you need. But apparently, there's some things happening on my organization, which is always great while you're doing a demo. But that's how it works, right? Live demos. So you can use the filtering functionality to figure out only those scenarios that are used, that use a certain app if you need to. And similarly, if you're on an enterprise plan and you're using our custom scenario properties, to structure your organization, for example, into development and production. That's a very common use case I've heard. You can also use these filters to only focus on what you care about. Especially when it comes to maintenance, it's also always important to keep in mind those things that require your urgent attention. And what we learned is that you would love to see that on top of Grid, because it allows you to figure out in which areas of your landscape do you have issues. To allow that, we added this small feature here that allows you to see on top of your basically whole map which of these scenarios, for example, are deactivated because of errors or have unresolved incomplete executions or almost full data stores, etc. If there's any kind of criteria that you'd love to see as part of that feature and it's not there, just let us know. So the idea is that it's very prominent, right? You can click on it, you'll immediately see what the problem is. You can check it, and you also have that widget here where you have the list, which also shows already something we added based on the feedback you gave us. There are some scenarios where apparently you don't care that much anymore, right? You just use them for testing, they ran into an error, but you're not using them. They're just somewhere around. So, of course, you can mute these assets so that they don't make your org look messy in a way, or like it requires more attention than it actually should. So you can get to a clean organization. A very last aspect I wanted to show when it comes to helping you maintain your organization is about understanding also credit and data transfer usage better. Of course, you can get that information, but to see it across your whole org in more granular fashion, also in a visual way, we added these layers that allow you to show this data holistically. So like here on the data transfer layer, I cannot only see it per team or per folder, if I zoom in a bit more, but I can especially also see where I see certain clusters and which of the scenarios contribute the most. And something we added very recently is that if you focus on a given scenario, you can even see per link which of the links contributes the most. So where is the data actually, like the data that this scenario consumes, where is it flowing? Which allows you to also understand how you can improve or optimize your setup if you need to. Those are the most recent changes we did that help you with maintaining bigger orgs, if that's your task. But there's also other stakeholders that benefit from a visualization like the Grid. We've heard especially from data privacy and security teams that they love to get that visibility into how data is flowing. Where does data enter your system, especially potentially PII data like contact info or Salesforce that you have here. So you see where it's entering your system, and you can also follow through to figure out where it might potentially go within your landscape, which is also, some of you might be subject to more strict audit requirements. Having that transparency and being able to show the auditor that you exactly know where's certain data entering my system or leaving my area of responsibility again, very, very helpful. So overall, those were the things I wanted to show when it comes to current capabilities on the Grid. Already mentioned in the keynote that we have various ideas how we want to evolve the Grid going forward, and I'm actually quite excited about this session next year and what I'll be able to show. With that, perfect. Let's go back to the slides and mention another topic from the area of scaling ecosystems and overall connecting systems. A topic that got a lot of attention last year and also quite some traction is MCP, Model Context Protocol. And we, on MakeSide, are following it closely and working very hard to keep up with all the evolution of that protocol. So by now, you can use Make both as an MCP client as well as an MCP server. If you want to learn what that actually means or what the value is that this can bring and how you can leverage it, we have a dedicated session starting in not 10, but 13 minutes right here again. So that's what I would love to invite you to. And besides that, we have especially a playground. I think it's on second floor. So if you walk up the stairs, and you'll find all the speakers and many other makers that are very eager to get in contact with you, discuss your ideas, hear your feedback, hear your thoughts, hear how we can make even better, help you even more, achieve more value with Make. So really, join us there. Looking forward to meet you there. And with that, thank you very much for joining us in this session as well.